okay.
Okay, but you should have seen it. We're talking about anime and movies.
Yeah,
the film, the arts.
Yes, we were talking about how we were supposed to advocate for ourselves, but how that kind of tends to be a bit of a problem in our career.
Indeed.
Yeah.
The industry, the content, the media, who you're dealing with, it's very hard.
Mouth culture is crazy.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
Oh yeah. Can't wait to get into it.
For real, yeah.
I'm getting all scared. I'm like, that's where I'm going. I'm running towards the fire.
Yeah.
Okay, so how we start every podcast is we take our hands and clap at the same time. So ready?
Yeah.
No, like in the mic.
Oh.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Talking Stick Podcast. I am Scott Iolachi, and I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Nathaniel Bryant. You can call me Nate.
And I am Jalan Royal.
And today, we're talking about disappointment. So, to immediately break the ice, I'm going to start by saying, when was the first time you guys were disappointed?
You want to take that one first? Or you want to let me go for it?
I'll let you go for it.
Perfect. When was I first disappointed? I mean, when I was younger, then this is going to be really obscure. You ever heard of that show called The Wiggles?
Yes, fruit salad.
Yummy. Oh, he knows what I'm talking about. So The Wiggles used to be this guy in there, the yellow guy, the guy in the yellow shirt, the yellow themed shirts, was my favorite guy. It was a funny little kid show. It was amazing. They would do songs. There was Jeff. I love Jeff. He was in the purple shirt. And they all had different bits, different characters, and different archetypes, all of these things. So the yellow guy was my favorite. But what I was most disappointed is that one time for the next season, they got rid of the original yellow guy.
Really?
And since then, the show started to go downhill. Mm-hmm. I was as a little kid, I was like, that guy's wearing a yellow shirt, but that's not the guy. Mm-hmm. And it hurt me because that was literally like one of my favorite shows growing up. Even my mom said even before I was like super cognizant, I was like, that was my show. But seeing him gone was like the first time I was like actually disappointed because I was like, I wasn't used to change like that. Mm-hmm. So I was like, at least for a kid, that was one of my favorite things I was into. I had a guitar themed after the show and everything. So that was like the first time I think I experienced disappointment in like a real meaningful way.
Yeah.
So
that's real.
It was.
Wow, that's so sad because I loved Wiggles.
Oh, so good.
All their music platinum. Let it be known.
Wake up, Jeff.
I think the first time I was ever disappointed was probably I was watching a Pokemon episode. Funny enough.
That's real.
And one thing that I think tends to happen a lot in kid shows is that our protagonist doesn't really lose often. So we're very used to them kind of going, the good guys win and the bad guys lose, and that's just how it is. Like, that's just the way that the system works. And so they threw a curveball at us on this specific episode where Ash didn't win.
Gasp.
And it was actually fairly violent because Pikachu got
oh my
hurt.
Gosh.
Like, Pikachu was not okay. And it literally stripped those rose-colored glasses off my face, in which I had to realize it was we don't always win. And even though we root for, this person that we get to know very well, and everybody loves Ash Ketchum. Everyone loves, when you think of Pokemon, you think of Pikachu and Ash, right? So we all love this character, and we're all rooting for him to be the very best, like no one ever was, But in this specific moment, it was really upsetting that, he didn't win, but two, this other character, Pikachu, that he cares so much about, got hurt, genuinely hurt, and that just, that broke my little heart.
Man,
yeah.
The rat got packed up.
Yeah, for real.
It's a pack rat. He's done for.
Fade was stolen.
My first time ever being disappointed is a little bit more specific to me, and unfortunately not on television. The first time I was ever disappointed was the end of middle school. I had a choice of either staying in the middle school system I was in. So how it worked is they had an elementary school, which I took part in, a middle school, and then they had a high school that I could also join if I wanted to. I decided I'm not going to go into the high school. I'm going to go and take a plunge into a completely different high school. But before I really was sure on that choice and told the school that's the choice I was going to make, I decided I am going to see... I didn't decide this. The school decided this for me. They said, Scott, you have really good grades. You're very well liked amongst the school. We want you to give the valid Victorian speech. And I know not every middle school has a valedictorian position, but mine happened to have it, and I got picked to do that speech. And I was so excited. I started writing it. I had like a page and a half of a speech. And this was before I was really sure in switching high schools. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, I want more for myself, so I'm going to this high school. And then I get called to the dean's office, right? And I walk in. You know, I've been in this office hundreds of times. There was pictures of a famous guy who went to the school. I forget who it was. There was a bunch of flowers on the wall, and there was a cup of water. You know those little chicken things that like poke their head into the water?
Oh, I love those.
Oh, yeah.
This is how traumatizing this was. I remember in great detail. And then the dean, his name was Jim, he looked really upset. And he looked at me in the eye and said, Scott, you are not allowed to give the speech. And this was 2 days before I was supposed to give the speech. And he said, you are not allowed. And I stayed for a second in processing what he just said because I was shook. I wasn't expecting that. Mm-hmm. And I was really upset. I wanted to cry, but I didn't want to cry in front of him. And I kind of just was like, and I was very obviously sad, and he knew what I was sad. He was tearing up with me. I love Jim. But he didn't give the order of, oh, you're not allowed to give the speech. It was Debbie, the president of all three schools, made that rule. Mm. And it's really ironic because this was a Quaker school. I'm not a Quaker, but it happened to be the best place for me. And they believe in the spices. S is for simplicity. P is for peace. I is for integrity. C is for community. And SPIC. E is for equality. And S is for stewardship. Boom. One cut. Anyway, so they believe in these spices. And, you know, one of them is integrity. And integrity they didn't have because they said I was not allowed to give the valedictorian speech because I was not coming to this school. And only because they were not getting my money next semester, school year, I guess, because it's middle school. And that crushed me because first, it completely disenfranchised me with the school because I personally still live by the spices because I think it's a great way to live your life, living a simple life, living with integrity, living with peace. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But they told me I wasn't allowed to give this speech because I'm not giving them my money. And they ended up giving it to another person. Again, this was 2 days, so I really feel bad for those other people because they had to figure it out quick. But I had that opportunity taken away from me. Yeah. And that was the first time I was crushed. I remember I never cried in his office, but I left his office and I went back to class and I laid my head flat on the desk and I cried silently to myself in class. And the teachers knew what happened because it's a small school, so news travels very quickly. Yeah. So everyone knew by the time I came back into the office what happened. And I was crushed. Jim was crushed because I loved Jim. Jim loved me. Debbie didn't even have the cojones to tell me herself that, no, sorry, you can't give the speech.
That's crazy.
And it's all money. And that was the first time I was ever really disappointed. Because, again, similarly to you, I've always had those like, oh, no, so-and-so didn't win in my favorite TV show. Oh, no, I didn't get ice cream when I wanted ice cream. But this was the first time I felt real disappointment. And it hurt even more because this was the last time I was going to see many of my friends. I only talked to one person from that school still to this day. Everyone else is gone in the memory.
Wow.
So it sucks. And I didn't get to say goodbye. I mean, I got to say goodbye unofficially, but officially.
Right. Wow.
But that was the first time I was ever disappointed.
Clearly, Debbie was not following her own policy.
Yeah. Yeah. Debbie don't sound cool weird. We do not rock with Debbie.
We don't rock with you, Debbie.
You're not invited to the cookout. You ain't coming here.
You ain't getting that Big Mac and cheese at all.
You would bring casserole anyway.
You probably put beans in your potato salad.
You use too much sour cream.
And for that, I will never forgive you.
My
Genuinely,
goodness.
for disappointing Scott. Never, ever.
It also lit a fire in me because now going into this new high school, because I went to such a small middle school and such a small elementary school, I was the big fish in those places. Like everyone knew me and I was so most popular.
Mr. John. Oh, okay.
But going into high school, I was like originally I was like one of 500. I was now like one of 1,500. And that is a significant difference.
Yeah.
And that's just the freshman class. When I said I was one of 500, that was the whole school. Now I am one of 1,500 freshmen, not including seniors, sophomores, and everyone else.
Jeez.
Crazy change. And I said, I want to prove my old school wrong. Unfortunately, I didn't achieve that dream, or that goal, I should say, until my senior year when I did start taking over. But partly because of the COOF, and mainly because of the COOF, and it was just, high school was a dark time in my life. But this isn't about high school, this is about disappointment. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts?
Well, dang. I mean, I thought I had a big old... the Wiggles for me was the first time I had, like, as a young kid experiencing the feeling, because that feeling left with me for years. Every time I saw that show, every time I saw one of my siblings, it was like, yeah, it stuck with me because I was like, that was one of the things I really found joy in growing up. Like, of course, man, I got a few sob stories because that genuinely sounds crushing.
Yeah.
I mean, because there were tears involved in that. Mine was just more of like, I felt a little bit bitter because something changed the way I wasn't ready for. But I was like, disappointment like that, yeah, that. I don't know. It's because it produced a different response, because for you it was actually like anguish. Me, I was just a little bit. I was more angry and bitter about it, it was a weird kind of disappointment. It was more of seeing like, hey, this thing fell beneath my expectations unexpectedly, and so I didn't really have anguish. There wasn't really tears for me. It was more of kind of like a.
Well, damn.
I was like close-fisted. Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
I was more close-fisted because it was like.
Yeah.
It hurt, but that's a different. I don't know. Disappointment, I guess, creates different responses in people. So at least depending on what you're looking at, or how those expectations were falling short of. Because, I mean, disappointment's a crazy thing.
It is. Yeah, it comes in different shapes, sizes, and.
Speaking of shapes, can it be good? Can disappointment be helpful? Jalen, you have something.
Yes, indeed, it can be good. One of the things that my parents used to always tell me to do, and it's not to look on the bright side, like that can be very toxic, you know what I'm saying? But I think that, one of the things that they used to tell me is that, when you hear the word no, you kind of have to turn it backwards and say, okay, game on. Mm-hmm. Especially going into the arts of any kind. My parents went to Berklee College of Music. So their every day was music and arts and seeing people try and pursue that. And what we were literally talking about is how inconsistent the arts industry can be. I had to realize, going into acting and musical theater that, you're going to hear no a lot more than you're going to hear the word yes. And that can be very disappointing. I mean, you can feel very discouraged for you might feel as though that you're not talented, that you're not cut out for it. But what I think that disappointment that we feel in that moment kind of tells us is that, you kind of have to keep going. I think a lot of people, when they feel that kind of rejection and that feeling of disappointment, when they hear the word no, they think, okay, this is the time that I have to stop. Mm-hmm. It's just, I'm not good enough for it. Let me just stop so I don't have to deal with the disappointment anymore. I'd rather, be disappointed once and then never have to deal with it again versus being disappointed and working through it. So I think it's a pretty good thing because it teaches us that we have to grow. Yeah. That we have to learn. That not everything is going to feel good and not everything is going to go our way. But that in order for us to do the thing that we dream of doing, we have to keep going.
Yeah. I'm in a similar vein because, I don't think disappointment in itself is inherently a bad thing. But my more concern was what kind of responses that produce in you. Mm. Because similar to what Jayla was saying, it was some people it's like game on. It's like I know some people are constantly want to avoid disappointment, but it's like in some things that are unavoidable. No matter how you spin it, your expectations are going to be dashed in some way, and the goal, I don't think, is to just lose all expectations. Just, it's not to just completely become numb to things, but it's like examining yourself to see, okay, well, when these things go wrong, how do I respond? Because that's something you can't control. You can't control when your expectations are dashed, when something falls short or something happens unexpectedly. Man, I wish I could control when the Wiggles was going to change that one character, But like I said, in my response, am I someone who becomes paralyzed? Do I become bitter? I think that's where, honestly, I think disappointment exposes the things in ourselves that we need to carefully examine. Of like, hey, how do I respond in this when I'm going to a new season, a new time in my life when things do go down? Am I someone who can adapt, or do I become paralyzed in disappointment?
Yeah.
And what does that say about me? How does that, it's just, I think things like that are good because they help to kind of expose some things we're not really willing to confront or investigate about ourselves. I entirely agree. I don't think it's entirely a bad thing.
Yeah.
So, that being said, when you do get disappointed, do you find yourself blaming yourself or blaming other people? Who are you disappointed with?
Do you want to take this one first, or you can take turns?
Yeah, no, yeah. You take it. Yeah.
Okay. So, for me, I feel weird going back to back, but I like to talk. It's I would say for me, now I'm someone who I often, at least in my younger years, I was someone who always kind of go after myself, of like, oh, I'm the problem. Something went wrong. I got to blame myself. And sometimes, like, it is good to, look at yourself, hey, I'm doing something right. But I do think sometimes it can be unhealthy because if you don't have a positive image of yourself, you oftentimes can just be like, well, I'm the one who fell short. I'm the one, which is important. But also, when it comes to disappointment, I don't want that to fall into blaming others. So I will say when thing goes wrong, I would say more, when disappointment happens, I more think about myself and more of what I can control. Because it's like, though I shouldn't blame myself for everything or blame someone else for things, I have to examine, hey, despite what someone else did, I have to take responsibility for my actions.
Yeah.
Like I said, even whether someone falls short, offends me in a certain matter, disappoints me in their actions, their character, whatever it is, that damage, that whatever they did, only goes up to the level that I'm willing to, in myself, be, you know what? I need to take responsibility for what I can do. I can take responsibility for how I respond to it. Absolutely. Because I'm like, in that case, that has helped me the most in disappointment, not to kind of balance between the, introspective versus being, overly self-critical. Because it's a weird balance.
Yeah. I love that because now I'm feeling the gears turning. I would like to say that my memory is very good. And that tends to occur to a fault. Because what tends to happen as an avid overthinker, because this is something that I love to talk about, because overthinking is something that I feel like a lot of people tend to think they don't do, when in reality we all do it.
Oh yeah.
I'm personally the king of overthinking. This whole podcast I've been like
yes, like when our mind starts running, it just starts running, and a lot of times we can't always catch up to it. And what I think is so crazy about me is that, when things tend to go south, and when I'm hurt, when people hurt me, I don't forget it, to a point where it tends to become a thing where I start to kind of just remember that fully, that you hurt me, and that kind of, it's disappointing that's a thing that happens, but I've kind of had to learn with time and with just age and experience that as much as we can sit here and say that, like, oh, you hurt me, you let me down. I think what I've learned, especially in my last few relationships, is that we have to hold ourselves accountable too. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people don't understand the difference between intention and impact.
Yes. Oh, goodness.
It's something that really gets on my nerves because I'm just like, I get it. There are so many things that we can do that can hurt people, and there's so many ways that we can let people down, and we might not want to do that, but we still need to hold ourselves accountable for doing it. We hurt this person.
Yeah.
And we hurt them enough that they felt a type of way about it. We need to take accountability for that. But on top of that, when we're hurt, we can't simply look at it as, oh, well, you hurt me, so
yeah.
Oh well. Like we have to look within ourselves. It's like you were saying about, looking at the things that we can control.
Yeah.
We have to kind of understand that we can't control other people. We can't control how other people react. So what we can do is control how we operate.
Yeah.
And today's a great example. The viewers at home will definitely know this. We have new guests on, but that's also because all of a sudden the people who are supposed to be in those chairs right now called in sick, and I had to figure out, okay, well, do I crash and burn or do I adapt? And I'm very happy that I figured out I'm not mad at them because, life happens. And how do I adapt to that? And how do I make this thing that disappointed me, and how do I come back from it? And I think when I called you guys in literally the last second, hey, can you come into the studio and record with me? And then you guys said, absolutely. I'm just over the moon about it because, again, I was planning on inviting you guys as individual guests, but now I get to have the both of you.
Yeah.
Hey, what could you say? We're a package right now. We're better than whoever we're going to have on here. This is a surprise if you ask me.
I'm very honored to be here.
Me too.
This is awesome.
But I took the disappointment and I didn't let it crush me.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's also very mature of you that you didn't use that disappointment to villainize others.
Yes. Oh my God.
Because that's a big thing about disappointment. Because sometimes those expectations you may have set for someone can be selfish.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you care more about what you were going to get out of it, or do you actually care about the other person?
Yeah.
So that's another can of worms.
It's very easy for us to demonize other people because they disappoint us. It's so incredibly easy to do that. And I think that's why we do it. Because it's so simple. That's why a lot of people are like, I don't want to be the bigger person.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the adult. Like, I want to be mad. And it's like, no, that's understandable. And
yeah.
But there's a time and place. You can be mad, but you can't let that control your life. Like, don't be an angry person. Be angry, but direct it righteously.
Right.
Yeah.
Righteous anger.
Yeah.
Righteous anger. There you go.
Because I was like, man, I love when my anger feels justified. Ooh.
Oh, yes.
And to the degree that I in my head will try to do my own mental gymnastics to make sure I am justified.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have to be the bigger person to forgive someone. Most times my default is, well, if I'm in the right, I'm gonna let you have it. I'm good. Look, I'm good at talking. I'm good at putting people down. It's one of my unfortunate gifts I was born with. Hey, y'all better help me out. I'm like, I'm someone where, especially when something goes wrong, I often want to be like, well, you know what, you disappointed me. Well, hey, you know what? It's my turn to go off. I don't want to. I guess I started to examine the kind of expectations I began to put on people, and it's like, I guess to help talk myself down from, exploding with anger. Because especially if I have someone in my life that just may disappoint me, maybe that's because I put on an unhealthy expectation they were not meant to perform.
Absolutely.
And it's like, now it's like, was I disappointed in them because, they genuinely fell short, or was I being selfish? Did I try to put a bigger burden on them they weren't meant to carry, and then mad when they couldn't do the thing that I expected them to do? It's just like, I think there's a lot we can take of, like, disappointment is very important, but it's like I said, exposes a lot of things of how we really are.
And we got to work on that for real. Like, that's something that we definitely have to really sit with ourselves and examine. It's like you said, like, we tend to put a lot of expectations on things that we probably shouldn't. Expectations aren't a bad thing. I think we should have expectations about certain things, but I think when it comes to, the people in our lives, I think that setting such specific and unhealthy expectations and standards on people it kind of provides a lot of tension and
Yeah.
pressure on these people to almost kind of operate outside of themselves. You know, they have to do things that are, you know, very privy to you.
Exactly.
And to how you operate, not per se how they operate. So I guess we really do need to work on how we operate in this disappointment and the expectations that we set on other
Yeah.
people. I mean, it can be very like just unbearable and scary, because we start to feel as though we're losing ourselves and the people that we care about, simply just because we had set this almost unattainable bar
Exactly.
for them to reach, and it's like they're in no way equipped to reach that bar.
Exactly. Yeah. It's, I mean, like you said before, life happens. People are human.
Absolutely.
I mean, like I said, I was like, I started looking at the expectations set on people. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm asking this guy to walk on water.
Literally.
Yeah. I was just
Literally.
like, no wonder I'm disappointment. I was like, I'm here putting the most crazy, unrealistic things on people. I was like I said, it's important for us to examine ourselves. So I was like, I mean, even this talk right now is putting stuff into perspective for me.
Self-reflection.
I mean, I'm disappointed all the time. I mean, I'm around people all the time.
Right.
So I'm always trying to be aware of those things, because,
Absolutely.
I mean, even the smallest slip up with these things could just, dislodge me and put me in the wrong spot. So.
Any last closing thoughts?
Speaking of clothing, your outfit is nice today. That's my last clothing thought. So. That's about everything I got.
I really like what you brought up, Jalen, about not putting unfair expectations on. I think that's something we can all learn from.
Yeah.
And it also made me think, maybe I'm putting unfair expectations on other people. And I definitely am going to be thinking about that tonight. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Jalen, Royal, Nate Bryant, and myself, Scott. Can they find you anywhere?
You will find me performing with the HPU Toccata Tones. You will also see me performing as Christmas Present in our production of A Christmas Carol. And I'm also in a student work called Decades in Review. We will be performing in the Black Box Theater October 26th. The same day as October Pony Fest, where you will see him as well. So come support the arts. Come support
Always
improv.
Support the arts. Please do.
Just, be supportive, be there, have fun, you'll enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Any social media they can follow you at, Jalen?
Ooh, yes. My Instagram is jalen._.royal214. You will find me there. I post some of the shows I'm in, some other things I do, like, touch grass.
I'm working on that, too.
How about you, Nate Bryant? Where can they find you?
Well, I mean, like you mentioned, I'm in Charcoal Pony, so I do improv, funny stuff. I'm Mr. Funny Man. I do sing as well with Mr. Scott and Dennis's Gospel Choir. If you want to find us there, us two next to each other, it's a party. We are all. Where else am I? If you want to also find me, I'd say at least on the social media. My Instagram is Nate.Bryant02. I'm also going to be posting more stuff out there. If you want to follow what I do, I make art, I sing, try to do a little bit of dancing, a little bit of improv. If you want to get connected with me, you can go on there. To plug my LinkedIn, I'm Daniel J. Bryant. Go look that up. And if you want to find me on X right now, you can go. Now this name, it's not my actual name. It's @thegrink_stink. It's terrible. Don't ask how I got it. It's an underscore between each word. But I'm gonna be posting more of my work there.
I love that so much.
Thank you.
I love
you.
That. That is incredible.
Oh yeah, that's a story.
That's the Grink Stink.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
I know. It's what I get called back home.
Wow.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been The Talking Stick. Have a great night.
Yes.
Bye-bye.